Hello people of YouTube, I'm Evan and welcome to the second half of my Skyward Sword review. Quick recap, at the end of the last video I was successfully able to avenge my younger self by completing a trial designed for children, and in this part I will be covering the rest of the second trip to Lanayru all the way to the end of the game. So if you haven't seen the first part yet, watch it! The reward for the Lanayru trial was the claw shots. Unlike in Twilight Princess, this game just hands both over at the same time, which means I can now latch onto targets and traverse large gaps by making use of both. At this new area, I meet a Goron, who gives me a key to open the door to Lanayru Sandsea. The path leads to an old dock that's completely empty except for a single boat and another robot who just so happens to be the captain of the very ship holding the next sacred flame. So he takes me across the sea to track it down. Skipper leads me through several locations to figure out the ship's whereabouts. One of our stops was a shipyard with the world's most dangerous roller coaster, and a room where I had to fight Moldarak again with much the same results as last time, but it ultimately proved to be a dead end. Our last stop is the Pirate Stronghold, a mini dungeon with more time puzzles, but it mixes it up this time with the time shift orbs, which are like portable time shift stones that can't be turned off. I bring the orb to the last pedestal at the end, causing the stronghold to open up, revealing the same sails used by the sand ship. Thanks to these sails, Fi can finally douse for the ship, revealing that it was invisible the whole time. With the sand ship's location uncovered, there's nothing left to do but climb on board. The dungeon starts out simple. I just have to search through the old rooms of the ship and find a way forward. I find a door leading back outside and have a duel with a pirate robot skeleton. I don't know why that was there, but the fight was cool. Once he's defeated, a chest appears containing the bow and arrow, finally! This lets me shoot a switch that brings out a time shift stone, which in turn returns the sand ship to its former glory. And here's where the real dungeon begins. From here, the puzzles revolved around switching back and forth between the past and present to slowly progress through the ship while saving the trapped crewmates. It gets surprisingly complex at times, and I actually managed to get stuck for a while and almost wasted all my arrows with how much I was shooting the time shift stone before remembering I could just use the beetle instead. There's this one room where you have to stop a fan and shoot an arrow through a small gap in the ceiling to hit the stone. Like, if you don't pay attention, you will get lost. I open the boss door, but instead of meeting the boss, something starts attacking the ship, and it starts this really cool segment where you have to escape the ship as it's flooding and being destroyed. I make it to the exit and come face to face with the boss, Tantalus. Is it just me, or does this thing look like it belongs in a different game or like a Disney movie or something? This one's another classic eyeball boss, so I just use Skyward Strikes to deal with the tentacles and shoot it in the eye so I can close in to strike with my sword. I repeat this cycle a few times, and just like that, Tantalus goes down, revealing the next sacred flame. I return to the Isle of Songs and learn Din's Fire, so I can douse for what should hopefully be the last trial at Eldin Volcano. Since you need to run up and down the mountain for this trial, I was expecting it to be even worse than the last one, but surprisingly, it wasn't that bad. I was never in any danger of running out of stamina, and I was able to weave past the Watchers pretty easily. I complete the trial and am rewarded with the Fire Shield earrings, which somehow make you heat resistant. It makes about as much sense as a red tunic. Now I can ascend further up the mountain through the volcano summit, an area that was previously way too hot to access. It doesn't take long to find the entrance to the next dungeon, but there's a wall of fire blocking, so I need to find a way to deal with it. That's right, it's time for more backtracking! Okay, so I go to Lake Floria, get Farron's Basin, have Scrapper taken to the sky, and then the robot took it to the wrong place. And now I have to run all the way back up the mountain, defending Scrapper from monsters because he's too lazy to take it back to the sky, and he keeps standing in front of enemies. Honestly, it wasn't even that bad. I just hate this robot for dragging this out more. I get back to the summit and have him extinguish the flames, finally granting me access to the fire sanctuary. This time around, my goal is to work through the dungeon, enlisting the help of these magmas to direct me towards the sanctuary's hidden treasure. This dungeon didn't really stand out much to me. There were some pretty clever puzzles with these plants that you use to drop water into the lava, and later when you have to stab them with your sword and carry them around. But for the most part, this one just felt like more of the same. One of the magmas gives me an upgraded pair of digging mitts that lets me dig underground, which leads to some unique puzzles and a sequence where I have to escape from lava. Yep. Super intense chase scene right here. I free fall onto a hidden platform that takes me into a mid-boss fight against two Dark Lizalfos, and then I get the boss key and enter the new room, where I meet Girahim once again. Thanks to the murals in this room, Girahim now knows about the existence of a second gate of time, so he intends to beat the information of where it is out of me. So it's time for a new, improved Girahim fight. A lot of it's the same as last time, except I actually found this one to be almost easier, since I had long since gotten used to the game's controls and was learning how to use my parry more effectively. I win the fight and Girahim retreats, opening the way to the final Sacred Flame. Now that the Goddess Sword is fully reforged, it completes its transformation into the Blade of Evil's Bane, the Master Sword. Well, almost. If you look closely, something's still not quite right. I return to the sealed grounds, which has been renovated by Groose since I was last here, to report my progress to the old one. But before I can open up the Gate of Time, the imprisoned awakens once again, and whoa, it has arms now! And yeah, it's basically the same fight, but now I have to use Groose's patented Groosinator to shoot him with bombs and stop him from climbing up. I go back into the temple and hit the Gate of Time with a Skyward Strike. Link walks through while Groose stays behind to look after the temple. On the other side, I finally meet Zelda, who proceeds to dump exposition for about 8 minutes, so I'll just run you through the abridged version. So basically, long ago there was this war between the goddess Hylia and the Demon King Demise over control of the Triforce. Hylia was able to evacuate the people of Hylia to a land in the sky which would become Skyloft, while also sealing away Demise. But she knew he would eventually break free, so she did two things. 1. She made Fi to guide the hero who would one day wield the Goddess Sword. 2. She gave up her divine form to reincarnate as a human, that being Zelda, knowing that she was destined to grow close to Link and provide the perfect incentive to get him to go on this quest. And yeah, it is kinda messed up that this entire thing was an elaborate plot to manipulate Link into saving the world. Oh, I wasn't leading into a defense, I was just saying that's messed up. So Zelda tells Link to go claim the Triforce and enhances the Master Sword to its ultimate form before sealing herself away into a deep sleep to buy Link more time. After a heartfelt goodbye, I return to the present where the Old One tells me to look around Skyloft to find out what to do next. And Groose reveals that he's decided to stay on the surface, believing it to be his destiny. Then makes a totally not important offhand comment about the soil nearby. Back at Skyloft, Gaepora says that my best bet is to talk to the Sky Dragon Levias, who is rumored to be trapped somewhere inside the Thunderhead, and that instructor Owlin might know more. Owlin explains that something is possessing Levias and making him lash out at anyone he sees. So to help protect myself, Owlin teaches me an advanced flying technique that is only taught to the seniors at the academy. Why is this the second time I've had to learn how to spin in this game? After this, Owlin sends me to the Lumpy Pumpkin to get some soup for Levias. I get Scrapper to carry the soup to the Thunderhead, and thankfully he doesn't mess it up this time, and Levias comes out almost immediately. Unfortunately, he seems to be covered in some kind of parasite. I take out all the eyes with the spin charge, causing the real thing to pop out on top, so I jump onto Levias's back to take care of it the old-fashioned way. So, ocular parasite bilocyte. It took me almost 10 minutes to figure out how to beat this thing. It's a big eye, so naturally I started with the bow and the slingshot, but those didn't work. Bombs don't work, claw shots don't work, whip doesn't work. The last thing I could think to do was deflect the energy balls back at it with my shield, and that didn't work either. And to make things even better, there's Fi. Remember how in Ocarina of Time you could call Navi to give you a hint on how to beat the boss when you were stuck? Well, Fi works a little differently. She doesn't give you any information on the boss's weaknesses until you've died to it once. I didn't know this at the time, mainly because staying alive wasn't an issue. I just couldn't figure out how to hit the stupid thing. So, the broken and defeated man that I was, I retreated to the internet for a solution. And you'll never guess what the answer was. Oh, of course. You don't use your shield, the one thing you have used to deflect projectiles. You use your sword, the thing that has never been explicitly stated to do that in this game. I did find out later that you can use the sword to deflect the Octorok's rocks. But the funny thing about that is when you scan them with Fi, she only says you can use the shield to deflect them. You are never told at any point that I'm aware of in this game that the sword can deflect things. And now I understand why people hate Fi even more than they hate Navi. The rest of the fight was easy once I finally knew what I was doing, but that was way more trouble than it was worth. Now that Levias has been freed from the Bilocyte's control, he tells me that if I want the Triforce, I need to learn the Song of the Hero, which has been divided into 4 pieces among the 3 region's dragons and Levias. Which means it's time for more backtracking! Would it have killed them just to add 1 more region for variety's sake? I drop into Farron Woods for the 3rd and hopefully last time, intending to head straight for the water dragon, but something's preventing me from landing anywhere except the sealed grounds, so I go there instead and... Oh, hold on just a sec. So Groose decides to use the Groosinator to launch me into the woods since the entrance is still blocked, allowing me to proceed into a now flooded Farron Woods. I track down Farron and she tells me that so many monsters have been plaguing the woods that she decided to Wind Waker the place so she wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. But thankfully she agrees to teach me her part of the song as thanks for healing her before, and oh, I'm just kidding, that would make too much sense. No, she needs to give me 1 more test to prove I'm worthy, because apparently being chosen by the goddess herself isn't enough. Luckily, it turns out the test isn't difficult so much as it is a little tedious. I just have to swim around the area and track down these fish called tadtones that will reveal the notes of the song. Tadpoles shaped like musical notes, huh? I'm getting the weirdest feeling of... I find all the tadtones and Farron gives me the first third of the song and undoes the flooding, restoring Farron Woods to its original state. So now it's time to move on to Eldin. On the way down, the volcano suddenly erupts and the blast of hot air pushes Link off course. The screen dips to black and I emerge inside a cell without any of my items. But hope is not entirely lost as Platz, one of the Magmas I saved in the temple earlier, managed to take back my digging mitts from the guards, allowing me to escape through a conveniently placed hole in the ground. The rest of this section is pretty straightforward. I just have to navigate my way through the volcano, collecting all of my items and avoiding detection from the bokoblins. Each item I take back lets me remove an obstacle blocking the other items, and I just repeat this until I find the Master Sword, which somehow got stuck in a cave despite there being no visible openings in the ceiling. Maybe Fi did it, who knows. I collect the last of my weapons and proceed into a new part of the volcano and meet the fire dragon Eldin for the first time. Unlike Farron, he gives us the next part of the song on the spot. That just leaves the Thunder Dragon in Lanayru. Golo the Goron was able to open up a new passageway in the Lanayru mines, leading to Lanayru Gorge, which just so happens to be the home of Lanayru, the Thunder Dragon. Man, this was way easier than the last 2. Oh, he's dead. Well, that complicates things, doesn't it? But this isn't our first experience with dead things in the Lanayru Desert. I track down a minecart with a time shift stone on it and bring it to the dragon so I can talk to his past living self. Turns out he has a severe illness that can only be cured by a fruit from the life tree. The robots tried to get him one, but the region's soil wasn't good for growing trees, so he eventually perished. Now, if only there was somewhere we could plant a tree and let it grow for thousands of years. I dig up a seed and take it through the Gate of Time so I can plant it at the sealed grounds in the distant past, then come back to the future to take the fruit from the now fully grown life tree, so I can then take it to the Thunder Dragon in the past, and he never dies, meaning I had no reason to take the seed and plant. Oh no, it's the Song of Storms all over again. Now that Lanayru is healed, he teaches me the 3rd piece of the Song of the Hero. All that's left is to report back to Levias and learn the last piece of the song. Playing the completed song opens up a portal to... You've gotta be kidding me. This trial actually wasn't really any worse than the others, so I quickly collect all the tears and obtain the Stone of Trials, which is supposed to reveal the location of the Triforce if I can find the other identical stone somewhere on Skyloft. Where, you ask, is the key to unleashing the ultimate power? It's on this random statue. Well, I'm sure it'll at least do something cool, right? Well, that's not... I claw shot my way across and steel myself to enter the last dungeon of the game, the Skykeep. This dungeon is basically one giant slide puzzle. You'll come across these stone tablets that let you rearrange the rooms however you like to try and get to the 3 sources of the Triforce's power, marked by the triangles on the map. When you reach one of the 3 marks, you stab the Master Sword into it to enter a Silent Realm containing a piece of the Triforce. I'm sure there's an optimal solution that lets you complete the dungeon without having to change the layout too many times, but just keep trying to reach new rooms and you'll eventually find your way out. The interesting thing about this dungeon is that the rooms are all based on the previous ones, acting as a sort of final challenge, testing everything you've learned up to this point. While I would prefer something a little more unique like Wind Waker's Tower of the Gods, I can also appreciate the progression of dealing with more and more difficult puzzles using the same concepts as it all culminates in this ultimate challenge. I collect all the pieces of the Triforce and the temple dissolves, leaving me where it all began, at the top of the goddess statue. The Triforce appears in a burst of light and Fi instructs Link to wish for Demise to meet his end. The Isle of the Goddess suddenly drops and falls all the way to the sealed grounds, and Link somehow survives this. Fi reports that Demise no longer exists in this realm, so I return to the sealed temple to wake Zelda. Everyone shares a moment, and right as it seems like everything has come to an end, Girahim appears, having finally located the second gate of time. Now that Demise is dead in the present, his only option left is to take Zelda into the past and summon him there. Link tries to step up but is injured from the last attack. Girahim kicks Groose and the old one out of the way and steps through the gate. Nothing left to do now but follow him and end this once and for all. By the time I get through, Girahim's already at the bottom of the sealed grounds and is starting the ritual to revive Demise. I run outside, but before I can jump down, Girahim summons a ton of monsters and walls to impede my progress. Tearing my way through wave after wave of bokoblins and moblins, there's only one thing on my mind. How long is this ritual? I've been at this for like 5 whole minutes. Once I make it to the bottom, Girahim's left with no choice but to fight me himself. Enraged and out of options, Girahim takes on his true form. Hey, kinda makes him look like an inverted Fi. Oh. Unlike the past fights, simply attacking isn't enough. I need to drive him back to the edge of the platforms he creates until he falls off, providing an opening for a fatal blow. I repeat this a couple times and then phase 2 begins. This time we're on the ground and Girahim fights with his sword again. From here on out, the fight is more similar to his past boss fights, but now I specifically have to thrust to attack the stone in his chest. But for as big as it is, it's surprisingly fragile, so I just wail on it until it breaks and leaves his chest open. A few minutes later, Girahim is defeated. Unfortunately, it was all in vain, as that fight bought just enough time for the ritual to finish, summoning the imprisoned while Girahim laughs at his success. Am I the only one getting Frieza vibes from this? The imprisoned starts to absorb Zelda's soul, transforming himself into the Demon King Demise. He forces Girahim into his sword form and turns to Link. Demise finds it fascinating that there's a human alive who's brave enough to stand up to him. Out of respect for Link's courage, he opens a portal to a place where they can fight with no distractions. Although Zelda's soul is gone, there's still a possibility that she can come back if Link can defeat Demise quickly enough. Fi warns me that once I step through, there's no going back until Demise is dead, so I get my equipment ready and approach the final battle. Hey, I didn't know Kingdom Hearts ripped off Skyward Sword. Demise gives a short speech promising to take the Triforce and use its power to conquer everything. The sky darkens and the fight begins. The first phase is pretty easy. Oh, no, let's try that again. The first phase is pretty easy. Nope, there's again. It's pretty... Just shield bash his attacks and get in as many strikes as you can before he recovers, then counter the next attack. It's not long before the sky turns gray and lightning starts striking the surrounding area. Not only do you have to watch out for lightning, but Demise is a lot more sturdy now, taking hits without even flinching. He also occasionally raises his sword to draw lightning into it, which harms you if he blocks one of your attacks. When this happens, your best bet is to run and dodge until he dispels the lightning in a projectile attack, leaving an opening to run in and get in a slash or two before you have to block again. With everything you need to watch out for in this fight, I found it to be surprisingly intense and engaging. I'd put it up there with Girahim for the best bosses in this game. It's not often a Zelda boss manages to feel like this, and since Demise doesn't have any weak points to exploit, it all comes down to your abilities as the player, whether you took the time to learn how to properly shield bash and figuring out when there's gonna be an opening to attack. As far as final bosses go, this is probably one of my favorites in the series. A few minutes later, I knock him down and finish the job with a flashy attack. Bad puns aside, what the heck even was that? The scene rumbles as Demise begins to dissolve. He commends Link's strength, but promises that this is only the beginning, and the descendants of the goddess and the hero will be forever followed by an incarnation of his hatred. And it will spawn a whole franchise of video games, all compiled on a timeline with 3 branching paths that make absolutely no sense. Demise fades away and is absorbed into the Master Sword while the screen fades to white. Link reappears in the sealed temple and is greeted by Impa, Groose, and Zelda. Fi has Link put the Master Sword in a pedestal to be sealed away until the next hero claims it. Goodbye, Fi. I calculate a 70% chance that you will be missed. If nothing else, thanks for being less annoying in this version of the game. Zelda gives Impa one of her bracelets, we return to the present, and the old one reveals that she was actually a much older Impa the whole time. And then she dies. Wow. The credits roll, and at the end, Groose returns to Skyloft while Zelda and Link stay on the surface to watch over the Triforce. Their loft wings return to the sky, and that is the end. I have finally finished The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. And you know what? It's a solid game. Sure, it's not the best game in the series, and I personally got very annoyed with the constant backtracking and padding. And I understand why the motion controls were a turnoff for a lot of people at the time, but I honestly never really struggled with them that much. Where Skyward Sword occasionally falls flat in gameplay and pacing, it more than makes up for with one of the best stories in Zelda history, giving us some emotional moments with arguably the most expressive characters we've ever seen before or since. My verdict, 7.5 out of 10. I'm Evan, this has been the longest thing I've ever recorded. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I upload eventually. That's all, see ya.